Welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. I'm your host and founder, Lockie Stewart, men's performance coach, and we're focused on empowering men to take ownership for their life and learn to love themselves and recognize the value that they have to give the world. Today's guest is back for another run. Brad Munro, welcome back, mate. You were previously on episode 233, we just worked out. So 40, 50 episodes ago, but it's great to have you back. So for those who want to get a good backstory on Brad and some of his experiences to date, go back and listen to episode 233. Today we're going to dive into some discussions around IVF, which is an experience that you've been through with your partner and your children, so your wife and your children. But first, before we dive into that, how you going, mate?
Oh, I'm good, man. How are you?
Mate, I'm fantastic. We've been trying to tee this up for a while. It's funny, like, we work in the same office together every Tuesday, and we have been teeing this up for a while, but, one thing that was really important for you to do was, have a chat to your wife about it, just to recap on things so you could, remember, I guess, what it was like for you as best as possible.
Yeah, I was just talking to you about it before, like we were really open about that we were doing IVF and going through the process with people, but at the same time now we talk about it still, but we've blocked out what actually happened.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, it's funny how we can do that with events in our life, and especially something as I guess significant as it was. But I thought we would get some stats around it as well, because I know a lot of I speak to men fairly regularly, and it's surprised me how common it is. And then obviously you're in that same boat, you speak to people all the time and you go, oh, mate, that's what I went through, and they go, oh, yeah. It is apparent, it's more common than we have been maybe not even led to believe. It's just something that not really spoken about. So that's why I really am grateful for yourself and also Kelly allowing you guys to share the experience, right? Because I think it's needed, and a lot of people are going to be on the other side of this going, well, taking a lot of key points away and also experience, because I really want to dive into what it was like for you. Obviously IVF, as I've got up here on the computer, almost 1 in 20 babies in Australia is born through IVF currently. Like, that's a pretty significant statistic. So fair chance that someone that is going through IVF. So to really understand what it's like for individuals going through it, I really want to dive into your head, which will be fun.
Yeah, diving in this yet again.
But take us back, so obviously your daughter, the boys, so your daughter's 7.
Yeah, no, Lucy's 6, she'll be 7 in August.
Yeah, so this year.
Yeah, she'll be 7 this year.
So,
and then the boys, the twin boys turned 4 just this Saturday gone. Yeah.
And you saw you took them away to SeaWorld, which was good fun.
Yeah, took them away to Wet Wild on the Friday, and then they spent the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at SeaWorld. Yeah. And stayed down there. It was awesome. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So take us back to, I guess, 7 years ago. What was, obviously you made the decision that you wanted to have kids.
Yeah, so we decided, we were, in that area, we were married, probably wanting kids. But at the same time, Kelly was getting a lot of stomach pains, cramps, and it had been going on a while, to the point where we were in Wellington, living in Wellington at the time, and she was walking along the waterfront to work, and she actually keeled over in pain, and it was endometriosis. So I got diagnosed wrong there, and then we moved to Australia 2012, and it got diagnosed here pretty early on, 2012 is from what we can remember, that she had endometriosis. Okay.
Yeah, right. And so obviously from that point on, I don't know too much about endometriosis, but I also know that it's a highly common condition
with women, and it's becoming more prolific, and maybe one of the reasons also why there's a lot more IVF, because endometriosis obviously, not obviously, it affects women getting pregnant. So Kelly had an operation for endometriosis, hard word, and obviously had a lot taken out, and they said, look, you're going to have to go the IVF route for kids. So we were like, okay, let's go straight into that. We got referred to a doctor, and straight away the doctor said, well, we need to get your husband checked out too.
Yep.
And no worries, I went and got checked out. I came back as a problem as well.
Yep.
So I could be well wrong with the numbers here. Let's say a normal guy ejaculates 15,000 sperm. I was around about 3,500.
Could that just have meant though that you had stronger soldiers, that you didn't need as many, or
I reckon
like the Spartans, like 300?
They were super strong.
Yeah. No.
Not really. It also came back to I had a operation when I was younger,
Yep.
which was an orthopexy, which basically one testicle was
Yep.
sitting higher than the other,
Yep.
and they bought the operation and it brought them back in alignment. Well, it mustn't have worked. So
Yeah.
one of the old ball bags weren't working properly.
Johnson Bears
Yeah.
was not working.
So I was an issue too. So both of us put together, we're not going to be making babies in hell of a hurry.
So what was that like for you when you received that news? Like, talk us through what went through your
I
mind.
was thinking about that yesterday, and I remember distinctly remember getting it. The message was in my car. I took it on the phone, and the doctor sort of said, you're an issue too. Not in a bad way. He sort of, said we need to concentrate on you as well. So I suppose at the time I thought, well, geez, that's pretty bad. Why couldn't I come to the party? But I remember also thinking, the more we talked about it with Kelly, was it's kind of a good thing because we're both at fault, not one person at fault.
Yeah.
So maybe in a lot of IVF cases, it's one person at fault.
Yep.
So they'll feel bad about it.
Do you think it's even fault? Because I think for a lot of the listeners
Yeah.
who are thinking about this, like feeling like you're at fault, is probably a lot of the pressure that stigma or pressure that comes with it. And this is once again an assumption, but I would say there's people who are wanting to have babies, so you're not at fault because your body, some things we don't have control over.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So fault's probably
Fault's
terrible.
probably- Yeah.
We were the issue that
Yeah.
we were the. We also had a condition each that didn't help us
Yeah.
produce a baby.
Yeah.
So we went the IVF route, and one of the things that was really interesting was when we got to the doctor, he said, "You guys are perfect, specimens as such, It was,
Is that the first time you'd heard that?
probably not perfect specimen. probably embellishing the story,
Yeah.
but in regards to our health, we were both fit, active,
Yeah.
healthy, led a pretty good lifestyle, so we were good candidates for this. So we thought this is going to be easy.
And so just on that, right, like, so being, obviously looking after your physical health is highly important in wanting to have children, and then obviously if you have to go down the IVF route, it's probably more important than ever before. So for those who are listening who maybe aren't prioritizing your health and you're thinking in the future you want to have a family, it's probably something you want to get in check with or in tune with.
Hugely lucky. If I jump forward a bit, after the first, let's say 2 or 3 IVF rounds, and we were doing it anyway, I really, Kelly and I locked into our health even more. So we were already probably not drinking and stuff, but we locked it in. We were buying thousands of dollars worth of supplements. We were doing everything. We were getting, I can't even think, acupuncture.
Yep.
We were supplementation. And I can't remember which round it was, but they had my sperm rechecked.
Yep.
It was after 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
Doctor walked into the room, opened the sort of lid of my sperm being rechecked, and he was like, "Oh, this is right." And he walked out of the room, and he came back and he was like, "What did you do?" Because I'd tripled my sperm count. Yeah. So I think it pulled me back up to being half a man, you could be able to say. Or I was in a better, I'm going to say I was around 13,000 or 12,000. I can't remember numbers, but I remember I tripled what I was.
So even like at that point, you just say half a man, was there moments where you felt like you weren't, did you ever experience thoughts like that?
I think I definitely did, but they went to the wayside pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because to me, it is what it is.
Yeah. So what advice, well not advice, but I guess if there's men out there who are maybe not feeling like they are a true man because they've got their own challenges in that space, what would you sort of advice would you give them, or maybe strategies that they could look to, because these things are out of your control?
Work on the things you are in control of, Work on your own headspace. I don't think I had to work on that too much, but work on your health. Health is so big to getting a better quality sperm, a better quantity of sperm. So again, being active. There's so many different things, like you can't get the area too hot, too cold.
Really?
You can't constrict it.
The old gonads have got to be.
You've got to, actually, and I hope this guy, I'm not going to mention names, but I spoke to a guy the other day who's going into the IVF process at the moment, and he sort of said to me, should I be having ice baths? And I said, well, no, actually not, from my point of view, because you want to be keeping those swimmers.
Like an incubator, mate.
Good tent,
like
mate.
Chicken egg just turning it.
Another thing I did quite a bit of is I didn't have my phone in the pocket. Took my phone out of the pocket.
It's interesting that you say that. It'd be like moving on generation after generation, because we are so glued to our phones and we do have it in our pocket. Wonder what the implications of that will be.
Big time. I think it's an implication. Other people might not. I think the other thing I remember seeing when I went to see the doctor, and I can't remember what sort of doctor it was about my testosterone and things like that. He said to me, have you done steroids before? And I said no. And he actually asked me again, have you done steroids again? And I said, look at me, mate. What do you think? And he laughed and he goes, well, you're a PT, you're in that trade of. And he goes, we're going into a really big cycle of kids were doing steroids at sort of that 18 to 22 years of age. It's 10 years on from that steroids use, and they go, I want to have kids.
And they can't.
And they're coming to see home.
It's so, and that's why we need conversations even around this, but just education on steroid use. I've never taken steroids. I've had mates that have, and obviously they blew up and everything like that. They got what they were generally using it for, but you think about the implications, and even for me, I get worried about my recreational drug use. I used to punish and gear back in the day, and I think about how that's going to, what are the implications going to be in the future around my brain or other components of my body as a result of that. And a lot of us are short-sighted, especially as a kid. Like, you don't have much responsibility, so you don't think about the future. But that's why I think it's important especially for people like you or everyone, to share their stories so we can think about what it's like in the future or the challenges that we can face, because we often look at people like, before you shared with me that you went through IVF, I would never have known. And a lot of people probably, even when they speak to you and you go, yeah, I did IVF, they're like, what?
Yeah.
And we're all walking around with these preconceived ideas of what we think people are like or what we think people's stories are. And unless we start sharing them, we can't add value, but we also can't educate.
Exactly.
Because, often we buy into story, not information. We've got, I don't have a textbook here, but let's say if I were to jump on here and look up IVF, there's no emotional connection to it, whereas now that I know your experience, it really fascinates me to know, because then I can research stuff but also chat to you about it, which is brilliant. I know a lot of other blokes out there who are going through similar things, or I may even have that challenge. I don't know yet. I'll be fucking pissed if I do, because the amount of money you spend on all the contraceptive stuff, and it's like, man,
I don't need that.
Yeah, I didn't need that. Give my money back.
I mean, another example was just last week. I think this is why we got talking. We need to do this podcast. There was a guy in the gym, and he saw me on the hip thruster, and he goes, "Oh, I know why you've got 3 kids." And I laughed, and I said, "Well, my kids have, 3 rounds of IVF, so it can't be for that." And he laughed, and then he looked at me, and he was like, I've just done IVF, my wife and I.
Yeah.
And he looked at me a little bit, like blank, and then just sort of let it all out and, talked about it. And it didn't go in depth about it, but he did say he was the one with the condition, or the one that wasn't playing the game amongst those two, so it was the male. Yeah. And
that's the thing, you don't know who it's going to strike. So I even think, do you think, knowing what you know now, is there any educational conversations that could be had in the lead up to that, if, to have you prepared for if one of you's, unfortunately not playing the game? And because we don't want to carry that guilt, or I don't know what other emotions maybe are experienced, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff. So how can we best support each other? And it's, once again, it's not fucking personal. Well, in my belief, I'm sure people take it that way. They go, fuck, I wanted a kid with you, but now I can't have it. But my idea is it's not personal. So what can we do to best prepare if that does, that red flag does come across?
I suppose the biggest one is we'll be prepared that could happen, because it's becoming more prevalent than we probably realise. And again, people just need to be, if they're comfortable with it, talking about it. And like I said, the whole way through, Kelly and I were very open about it. People knew about it, but like I said before, we sort of shut that side of our books now because we've got the kids. But more than happy to talk about it. In regards to being ready for that, it's that it could happen. So if you're listening to this, it can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
And it could be the female, it could be the male, it could be whatever.
And it doesn't matter how fit or healthy you are. Like you said, you already had the gold standard 5-star rating of health, which obviously helped you with the IVF, but you didn't fall pregnant straight away normally either. So normally, or define normal now, everything's
exactly.
Normal, which is great. But even just reading here, and this will sort of segue us into what that IVF experience was like for you. It says here that there were 14,355 babies born through IVF treatment in Australia in 2018. Right, so 14,000, it's a pretty big number. But then there were also 84,000 initiated IVF cycles in 2018. So that's almost a quarter, right? Maybe 1/5, 1/6, something like that.
Something.
Right. So obviously it's not a guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not.
So what was that? Did you nail it the first time?
I'm far from it, mate. My wife and I had again talked about this last night. We did 9 rounds of IVF.
Yeah.
And there was like another round in between the 8th and the 9th, which we had embryos stored from a round that we used.
Right, explain that to me because you just lost me.
For IVF, what happens is they take the egg, inject there's different ways of doing it, but they take the egg, get the sperm injected in, and create an embryo, and then they grow it. Okay, so you might get 9 around.
So does it then go in an incubator then?
Yeah, for a certain amount of days.
Yeah, awesome.
It can be, I think it's around 5 days. Again, blocked it out of my mind, I can't remember, but the process happens 5 days, and then they get that, and they put it back into the lady. Pretty quick process there. And a lot of people can, from that process, get, let's say 15 embryos. Okay?
Yep.
They get stored, and they might only put 1 in each time, so they can keep using those up. They're in storage, so they don't have to go
essentially you've got 15 rounds from that.
Exactly. Yeah. But we never got that. So we would, the first round we got, and you can't remember, let's say we got 3.
Yep.
They put them in wherever they put them, and 1 survived. They put that in Kelly, damn it, didn't go through it. She goes through the process again. So this happened the first, 2 times. We're like, geez, we can't even make many of these embryos, and let alone put more in storage. And each time it's a costly affair. Obviously, costs each time you do it.
Yeah, I didn't
so
think about
monetary wise, I always say I have a freehold house now. My kids are going to listen to this when they're old and go, great. A freehold house.
But obviously it was something that you guys would commit, which I think is awesome because there's a lot of parents out there. I'm not going to say there's a lot, but there are definitely parents out there that probably shouldn't be parents.
And that's one of the things that I'm leading to before, Lockie, where they see you're you're a perfect food to produce a baby. Yet you don't, and then you got people in other areas who are drinking, taking drugs, and they've got several children. Yeah,
was that confronting for you guys?
I remember being maybe around 5 or 6 rounds in going, these people living in certain areas of Brisbane and they've got 7 kids and they're taking drugs, they're drinking, how does that happen? But those sort of feelings and thoughts would only last no longer than 24 hours. Easy. So we get the news, no it doesn't, it hasn't happened. Kelly and I have our little dwell.
Why do you feel that you were in such a strong position to be able to process that so quickly? Because I know, once again, I think to highlight for everyone, this isn't a guideline. You're not going to just, I don't believe everyone would process it in 24 hours. I know some people it might, take months. Like, I guess it's a form of trauma or grieving, right? So there's no blanket approach. So what do you feel allowed you to be in that position where you, because to me that seems like a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, I don't know it's me, Lockie. I move on pretty quick from
Yep.
things, I think. Again, there might be military, or
Yep.
it's just me. Deal with the situation, it's dealt with,
Yep.
let's move on. Is that going to haunt me in the future? It may do.
Yep.
I don't think it will.
Yep.
I've got 3 beautiful kids now, beautiful wife. But Kelly was also good too.
Yeah.
She'd get the phone call, no, get off it. She'd have a cry, I'm sure.
Yep.
She was upset. It would not last. We'd just be like, okay, this weekend we're going to let our hair down. We'd either, might go have a few drinks or something, do that, bang, we're back into it. Okay, we're going another round. Let's
That's
go.
epic.
And it just go.
Fucking persistence.
Yeah, well, look, we started IVF in, we think it was late 2013, and it took us 8 rounds of IVF. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
To get Lucy in 2015.
Yep.
So yeah.
So 8 rounds.
8 rounds.
So for everyone out there who may be dealing with this or could deal, like I said, I don't know where I sit on this process. Like 8 rounds, there's no guarantee in all of it. So while you may start questioning yourself after maybe 1, 2, 3 rounds, like Brad and his wife Kelly went through 8 rounds.
8 rounds. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be people out there who've done many more than that.
Yep.
Over more years too,
Yep.
because again, they might not have backed up straight away.
Yep.
Hey, let's go again.
Yep.
So that could be a long process. And there's probably people who've been through triple
Yep.
that and do not have a baby.
Do you feel the experience made you guys, how was it for the relationship?
Geez, you'd have to ask Kelly that as well.
Yeah, that's
no,
true.
it definitely made us stronger.
Do you want to play footsies with me under the table?
I think everyone that comes in here tries to play footsie with
Yeah, I
me.
know, I should have worn bare feet.
Should have been interviewing women.
Little footsies.
It definitely makes you stronger in aspects, but I think Kelly and I have already a nice strong relationship, open in regards to what we talk about. So definitely in some ways it would have strengthened it.
Yep. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Come through that. So talk about stress. Like I can't remember who. Anyway, there was a gentleman that I was speaking to, and I remember I was trying. I might be regurgitating one of your stories, but they were trying for kids for ages, and then we were going to look at the IVF route, but instead he took 3 months off work, and just the decrease in stress, and then he was just like 3 months later, bang, baby on the way.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in a couple of things with IVF. Stress is definitely right up there. One of the top 3 things is a reason why people aren't. But you try and tell someone who has either have to go through the process to chill out. You can't, and that leads me probably into with the 8th round with Lucy. We were nearing the end. We're like, we're done with this.
Yeah. So did you?
We did the 8th round. The embryo went into Kelly. Kelly went to the Sunshine Coast, and I spent a week and a half just laying there, doing nothing, chilling and relaxing.
Yeah. I
went to the Ashes and
children relaxed.
I chilled and relaxed at the Ashes for 2 days.
Yeah.
That was a great time there. So I'm a big believer in that, but trying to tell people to chill out through that process is
so
hard.
that probably highlights as well why it's, and we talk about this with mental well-being and emotional well-being strategies. Some people are currently dealing with mental illness or mental health challenges, others aren't, and some never have. But the importance of implementing some good practices or strategies, so if you do get confronted with it, you know how, you can handle it. So as you were sort of to tie it back in, try and tell someone who's going through IVF and they're on round 8 to say, hey, just relax a little bit. And you're like, motherfucker, this is costing me a fortune, and it's my 8th try.
Yeah.
But if people have already been practicing mindfulness in some way or ways to minimize stress, they can sort of be on the same page and go, you know what, they understand stress and the negative impacts that it has. But don't get me wrong, some stress is good, but the amount of stress a lot of people are living with is not healthy. So for those of you who are listening and maybe you wanted to have children in the future, I know for myself, when Amy and I are going to have children, I'll be chilling. I will be, you won't see me, you won't hear any I'll be doing podcasts, but I'll be doing a lot of things to minimize stress. That's why for me, setting my life up to a point where I have a bit of choice and a bit of flexibility and financial backing is important for me because I want to be able to ease off. So for yourself, like obviously going to Ashes was a way to de-stress, but were there any other things that you
No, back then
changed?
I wasn't doing any forms of meditation.
Yeah.
You know, things like I'm doing now, meditation, brain tap.
Yeah.
But if I'd known about those back then, I would have known about meditation and maybe practicing a little bit, but not like what I do now.
Yeah.
Especially the environment function well, you know,
Yeah.
promote that. But now, you know, I'd be telling people, or you know, saying to people, you know, brain tap, meditate, take that time, take that half hour a day to chill, do those things that are going to help you.
Yeah.
But yeah, on top of that, still doing your exercise, still doing all those things to negate that stress that we talk about. That we know a lot more about these days.
Yeah, and probably also putting yourself in a financial position to be able to go through IVF. Like I'm not sure what the costs are. You don't have to talk about that, but like obviously there is a financial outlay involved. So once again, it's one of the reasons why finances is one of the 8 areas that all men must master, or couples must master in this instance, because we need choice. And if you want to have, you know, if, like I said, if that option presents itself, are you going to be able to put yourself in that position without adding the financial stress to it? Because once again, we're looking at minimizing stress here and being comfortable through that process to give yourself the best chance. So we need to start connecting all those dots, and that's why, you know, what we're doing with it in the circle now, we're building out modules, and you have, you know, been able to add your experience and expertise in certain areas, adds more layers to how we can empower men, but creating an overall vision for yourself. And why we want people to do that, like ideally, if you could do that at 18 or 13 or whatever, you're going to start being more aware of the implications or what you're trying to grow towards, the skills that you need to learn, finances, communication, minimizing stress, physical well-being, to give yourself the best shot at creating the life that you want. Because too many of us live short-term, and when we get to the long-term, we're freaking out, right? You might get to 50 and go, I wanted to retire in 10 years, but I have nothing behind me, no assets, so I'm going to have to probably commit to working until I'm 80 or 90. Not because I love what I do, but just because I need to live. And or, you know, you might be, and this is something that I guess frustrates me, is people don't take responsibility for their physical health. So we see people that are really overweight, right? They're not looking after their health, and maybe, and once again, I used to punch a heap of drugs, used to smoke, used to drink, so it's like the pot, what's it, the chemical, pot black, yeah, whatever.
Kettle black.
Yeah, it's like that. But you know, the last 7 years I've really fixed up that, because I became aware of the implications of what that could be doing for my health long term. But it's like, if we think about, we want to be a parent, you want to be a good role model, you want to be healthy, you want to be able to run around with kids, you want to decrease your risk of metabolic health disease. So why aren't we looking after our health from a young age, like, or at least being mindful of it? Because in 2015, when I first made my 10-year vision, health was a priority, because I knew that's how I wanted to be as a parent. Because I see so many 50-year-old dudes shuffling, they can't play with their kids, and you're like, bro, you're 50. It's not that fucking, that's not old.
Yeah.
It's young. And you're fucking useless. As much as that sounds bad, but essentially, quality of life is done, unless you're going to look to improve it. So we need to start creating that vision for ourselves. That's what we're doing in the Inner Circle. Little plug there, but help you create it, because then you can start looking at a long-term vision for yourself, and rather than everything being overwhelming, it becomes bite-sized chunks on how you can improve who you are as an individual and the man that you want to become, so that, you know, you've got a better shot at living that ideal life and creating what you want. But, you know, obviously after, or the 9th attempt or the 8th attempt, anyway, around that ballpark, your daughter was born.
Yep, we had Lucy.
Exciting.
Yeah, it was full on time. I just started with rugby league, with student conditioning there. So yeah, there was a bit of a busy period, and we had a lot of help. Yep. There's no doubt about that. Like they say, it takes a village to raise a family. I think it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is.
It's true. You know, support is so important. We basically, Cal's mum was always there. She, especially with the boys, pretty much lived with us for the first sort of year and a half to have that help. You know, feeding 2 babies.
Wow.
Yeah, that's people forget about that sort of thing. How to feed 2 babies. You know. Is it done at the same time? Is it?
You should have got the plastic boob to strap on.
Well,
that
was the other thing. Kelly's milk never came
Yep.
so they were bottle fed.
Ah, interesting.
You know, so they were powerful. So that is another thing I think. Well, I'm pretty close with my kids. I got to feed them. You know, and a lot of men feel that left out period, that first 9 months that you talk about.
Well, so what do you do? Right, you can't feed them. You just sort of stand there as like a toy soldier on a bench.
Yeah, I think that's where men feel like they're left out.
So what
I was lucky enough to get to feed them. Not that other people don't get to do that, but quite often they're breastfed.
Yep. So had you not had the opportunity to do that, or that that's how the cards were dealt, so to speak, would there be anything you know now, knowing obviously that it's important for you to build that relationship from the get-go, that you would probably give your younger self if you... Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's sort of like that thing that I'm doing at the moment. You're spending 10 minutes with each kid a day.
Yeah.
You'd probably be trying to do that with your baby, even though if you're not breastfeeding. And I'm sure fathers do spend, but maybe they go, I'm going to do 30 minutes and I'm going to read a book to them.
Yep.
You know, something like that.
Get used to your voice.
Exactly, and do that every day.
Yep.
Every day. And that's just yours, no one else in the room, it's just you and the baby.
Hey, you should just put this podcast on repeat so they continually hear your voice.
I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Well, you could.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would look back on and do that. And yeah, I got that time to feed the babies, and also obviously being a PT, you're working weird hours where you can be home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and perhaps you get to do that feed, where it's not that 9 till 5 job where you may not be home during the day to get that feed. Yeah.
That's a cool thing, even just touching on the importance of taking an ownership for your lifestyle and thinking about, once again, I did a post on this sometime this week about like societal success, and we're all trying to tick the boxes, buy the house, go to uni, climb the corporate ladder, do this, but it's so many people, 84%, I think it was 84% of people are disengaged at work. Quite a high number, right? So that system clearly isn't working. So we need to redefine what those boxes are. And one of the reasons why I started my own business was, and I guess if we look at business as a win-win, right, the winning factor is I get to help people change their life, but it also allows me the lifestyle that I want to live. So I see that as a fucking win-win for sure.
Yeah.
And then you can build your life around that, because I look at yourself, like as you were just saying, you have the ability to be a bit more flexible. You can go home and do, even though you do the drop-offs and all that sort of stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Not a lot of dads got the opportunity to do that back in the day. So for me, that once again highlights why it's important to start thinking about, from a younger age, potentially, what kind of lifestyle do you want before. It gets harder as you have kids, or as you get a mortgage, or various other responsibilities come in. So if we can think about this younger before you get that, you've got more control, or there's less factors to think about before we make those.
You've processed it, you've thought about it, you've put in maybe a plan of action.
Yeah, 100%. That's why it took me 7 years to propose, because I wanted to make sure financially I was in a better position. I'd sorted my shit out, and now I feel good. Good. It doesn't take everyone 7 years, but it took me that while. That was fucked up. But obviously, then so Lucy was born, and then 3 years or 2 and a bit.
Yeah, sort of. So we had during that, between the 8th and the 9th cycle. So the 8th one, like I said, we were probably ready to give up. Lucy, bingo, awesome, job's done. We've got our little baby. I'm not doing that again. And guess what? There's an embryo in storage. We could have been 2 embryos in storage. So every round, except for the first one, we would always put 2 embryos in Scally, because there's more likelihood that you can produce one. One doesn't make it, one does make it. So we had 1 or 2 in storage, they went in Scally, didn't work. We were done, finished. Our rule was though, if one of us wanted to go again,
you had to.
Yeah, go again, and there was no argument.
It's awesome that you set these boundaries and expectations beforehand.
Absolutely, So that was, if you want to go again, if one of us wants to go, we'll go again. Kelly wanted to go again, and I remember going, no. We're done. We've got one. We're happy, we've got one. No, we've got to try one more time to try and get loose. Rather than sister. So went around. Again, how many embryos I don't know, but there was 2, and they weren't high quality either. Okay, so they were graded out of 5. So 5.
Yeah, so they can grade your.
Oh yeah, they grade the embryo once it's put and grown and done.
And did you have to have your sperm retested and stuff, or?
I know I did a few times.
Yeah.
But it was just that one time. I think before the 3rd or 4th round that we had it
Yeah.
checked again, and that's when I made the improvement.
That's epic.
Yeah.
Stallion.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see it now. Nah,
Mate, you're
it
stronger
should
than
be good,
ever.
mate.
You'll be
healthy,
hitting
yes.
on fire. Look out.
No, take COVID out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had 2 and put them in, and what do you know? We 2 start doing their thing. So Kelly's pregnant with 2. The interesting part was we think we had in those 1 to 8 cycles, we probably had 3 miscarriages.
Yep.
Where they said, "Yep, bingo, you're on here," and then the 5th week, 6th week mark, they'd say the numbers coming down. And probably not going to get there. So yeah, we had that, and I think Kelly bled on those, so she knew she'd lost them.
Yep.
Anyway, so we got the 2. Yeah, you got the 2, and then she bled. So basically, we're like, she's lost it.
Yep.
So we emergency see one of the doctors to get it tested.
Yep.
And we're already thinking, okay, hasn't happened,
Yep.
done. We're flying to Sydney this weekend.
Party.
We're having a good weekend.
Yep.
That's all we're doing. So had to go and go through the process. Anyway, so Kelly goes in, lie down, and he's swirling around on his stomach, having a look. And I'm looking up at the screen, and the doctor just looks at us and goes, "Well, you know what's going on there." And he said that, and at the same time, I saw 2 beats, or 2 movements, whatever you beats.
Boys are inside.
Yeah, and I was like, fuck. Like this, and he goes, "Yes, I've heard that before." And he goes, "I'm going to leave you and let you process this." And the doctor started walking out, Kelly's lying and going, "Oh, what's going on?" He's 2 big, Kelly. So we had 2. And there was some complications from them, but some minor complications. But from then on, yeah, we had 2 on the way.
Got the boys.
Yeah. And I just remember going, "We've got to get 1 out of this."
Yeah.
It's not a very good way to think about it, but that's how I thought about it at the time.
Yeah.
We're going to get 1 out of this. We're right. So, and now I've got Toby and Ryder.
And they're legends.
2 different boys. They're twins, but
Yeah.
2 different boys.
They're unreal though.
Yeah.
And that was so. Like looking back, advice or steps for people who maybe are at where you were back in, let's say 2014.
Yeah, so that was sort of
before it all
2013
began.
we
Yeah.
sort of started that process. Think of ways you can improve your lifestyle.
Yep.
Read as much as you can, because that's what we did. We sat back and we did a lot of reading on how could we make ourselves healthier? What could we do? Who could we go see? We were going, the money we spent on supplements was
Yep.
crazy, trying to make sure everything was in us.
Yep.
We had the right zinc, we got that, right through to Kelly with the acupuncture after acupuncture.
Yeah.
So it's finding what you think. Do your own research.
Yep.
To find out what you think may help you in
Yep.
your cause. And probably go back to what we talked about before. Find ways that help you de-stress. It's a fact that it stresses some of the issue, but how you negate that,
Yeah.
you've got to find what works for you.
What so all these random questions are coming. Like, was there any questions that you wanted answered from an early stage period in this that you didn't have answers for that you could probably highlight or, I guess, elaborate on for people?
Well, probably one of them was going back to what I said about I was able to improve the sperm.
Yeah.
I was able to, the quality of them got better.
And had they said it's not possible, or what?
He hadn't seen an improvement like that from what I was.
Yeah.
I'm sure there has been improvements like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing, what you got to remember, they only need 1 sperm.
Yeah.
They only need one quality sperm to put in to make the embryo to put into the body. So if you can make the quality of them better, there's different ways to extract that.
Yep.
So you got to find, make make a way or find a way to get more quality. So is that, are you going to go organic and eat organic food? We ate a lot more organic food.
Yeah.
But alcohol gone.
Alcohol doesn't really seem to serve a purpose for much. Like, it's a good time, and there's obviously a lot of social constructs around it, but in terms of mental well-being and physical health and obviously sexual health even, it's like not giving yourself the best chance to improve those factors.
Yeah, not at all. So yeah, do your own research, find someone who's been through it and ask them questions. And that's one of the reasons you got me on here talking about it today.
Yeah.
Amongst our men, we will have a number. I know of a few already, and that's just, I don't even know a little bit of the group. So hopefully they approach us, they want to talk about it, because we've got no problem.
Yeah, I'm not the expert here. So for those men who want to reach out to Brad, I definitely do. So you can obviously join the free Facebook group, and for those who are in the free Facebook group, reach out to Brad, like, have these conversations. I'm sure, I wish I had more questions in my head to ask you, because I'm sure there's people listening to this going, ask this, and I wish I could, but for the moment my brain's tapped out with, I guess...
and there's so many tangents to the story, Lockie, I could go on, that led us to Lucy, Toby and Ryder. But
I think to I guess to sum, from listening to you, one thing that I guess I've taken away from it is that you never blamed yourself, which is, I see, and once again, that victim mindset in any element of your life doesn't serve a purpose. It may make you feel good at the moment because you've got someone to blame, but like the moment that you take responsibility, you can, like you did, you started getting all the supplements, you started doing everything within your power to give yourself the best shot at getting the result that you wanted. Right, even to that point though, nothing was guaranteed. You had 8 or 9 attempts before it became a true thing. So for all of you guys out there, like, understand that nothing's guaranteed. You've got to make sure that you're giving yourself the best shot. So start thinking about, is what you're doing today going to allow you to have the results that you want in the future? And it isn't, people go, oh, fucking deal with that, I don't deal with that. Good luck. Like, why do we see so many people who are unhealthy, unhappy, and their life isn't where they want it to be? Because they don't take responsibility for moving, I guess, guiding the compass where they want it to go. Right, so that's what I took away from yourself and Kelly is, you were able to process, I guess, the setbacks really well, rather than dwell for too long. And once again, I'm not saying that's a standard that everyone should live by. Everyone's experience is completely unique, but I feel, being able to turn that around in a short amount of time and move on to the next round, that's unreal. But also taking ownership and working on the things that are in your control, which has now got you a lovely family. Yeah, it's unreal.
It's amazing. Like we just said, the boys turned 4 on Saturday. Like 4 years, and that's why we've sort of, to a degree, blocked out what happened.
Yeah, well, I think you're focusing on
forward, not back.
Not back. Like, everyone has setbacks and challenges, but once it's all perspective. And you've got an incredible family and you want to enjoy those moments, and doesn't, the fact that you went through IVF doesn't define you. You got the result that you guys were looking for, a family. Yeah, absolutely. You get to be a fucking role model, man. Well, you already were, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you get to have a significant influence over 3 young people. Mini Bradleys, flipping out. Mate, but thank you so much, and honestly to your wife Kelly, because I'll make sure you guys approve this before we go live. For those who are listening to this now, it's been approved, hopefully. But I appreciate you guys sharing your experience and story, because I know there's so many people who are going through this, and there's just so many questions. So once again, if you do have questions for Brad, you can find Brad on Instagram. What's your handle?
Coach Brad Munro.
Coach Brad Munro. You can also find him in the Men That Can Project's Facebook communities. He's also one of the leaders in our Inner Circle program, and slowly but surely he's going to be running more workshops and talks. So if you guys want Brad to run 8 area or talks on the 8 areas that all men must master, or even just get him to talk about that experience for those who would benefit from that, reach out to us at the Men That Can Project. But you can find all of that www.thementhatcanproject.com. And please like this podcast, share it, and bloody subscribe, because we'll have heaps more incredible guests. But also, you know, for those who want to send some rapid fire questions to Brad, we can always do a number 2 because we're always here. But just even other topics, Brad will be coming on the show to do that. So thanks for coming on, mate.
No worries. Thank you.